Extrasensory perception or ESP includes reception of information not gained through the recognized physical senses but sensed with the mind. The term was adopted by Duke University psychologist J.B. Rhine to denote psychic abilities such as telepathy, clairaudience, and clairvoyance, and their trans-temporal operation as precognition or retrocognition. ESP is also sometimes referred to as a sixth sense. The term implies acquisition of information by means external to the basic limiting assumptions of science, such as that organisms can only receive information from the past to the present. Parapsychology is the study of paranormal psychic phenomena, including ESP. Parapsychologists generally regard such tests as the ganzfeld experiment as providing compelling evidence for the existence of ESP. The scientific community rejects ESP due to the absence of an evidence base, the lack of a theory which would explain ESP, the lack of experimental techniques which can provide reliably positive results, and considers ESP as pseudoscience. History: J.B. Rhine. In the 1930s, at Duke University in North Carolina, J.B. Rhine and his wife Louisa tried to develop psychical research into an experimental science. To avoid the connotations of hauntings and the seance room, they renamed it Parapsychology. While Louisa Rhine concentrated on collecting accounts of spontaneous cases, J.B. Rhine worked largely in the laboratory, carefully defining terms such as ESP and psi and designing experiments to test them. A simple set of cards was developed, originally called denote cards, now called ESP cards. They bear the symbols circle, square, wavy lines, cross, and star. There are 5 cards of each in a pack of 25. In a telepathy experiment, the sender looks at a series of cards while the receiver guesses the symbols. To try to observe clairvoyance, the pack of cards is hidden from everyone while the receiver guesses. To try to observe precognition, the order of the cards is determined after the guesses are made. In all such experiments, order of the cards must be random so that hits are not obtained through systematic biases or prior knowledge. At first the cards were shuffled by hand, then by machine. Later, random number tables were used, nowadays, computers. An advantage of ESP cards is that statistics can easily be applied to determine whether the number of hits obtained is higher than would be expected by chance. Rhine used ordinary people as subjects and claimed that, on average, they did significantly better than chance expectation. Later he used dice to test for psychokinesis and also claimed results that were better than chance. In 1940, Rhine, J.G. Pratt, and others at Duke authored a review of all card-guessing experiments conducted internationally since 1882 titled Extrasensory Perception After 60 Years. It included details of replications of Rhine's studies. Through these years, 50 studies were published, of which 33 were contributed by investigators other than Rhine and the Duke University Group. 61% of these independent studies reported significant results suggestive of ESP. Among these were psychologists at Colorado University and Hunter College, New York, who completed the studies with the largest number of trials and the highest levels of significance. Replication failures encouraged Rhine to further research into the conditions necessary to experimentally produce the effect. He maintained, however, that it was not replicability, or even a fundamental theory of ESP that would evolve research, but only a greater interest in unconscious mental processes and a more complete understanding of human personality. Early British research, one of the first statistical studies of ESP, using card guessing, was conducted by Ina Jeffson, in the 1920s. She reported mixed findings across 2 studies. More successful experiments were conducted with procedures other than card guessing. GNM Tyrrell used automated target selection and data recording in guessing the location of a future point of light. Atelier Carrington experimented on the paranormal cognition of drawings of randomly selected words, using participants from across the globe. J. Hettinger studied the ability to retrieve information associated with token objects. Less successful was University of London mathematician Samuel Soule in his attempted replications of the card-guessing studies. However, following a hypothesis suggested by Carrington on the basis of his own findings, Soule reanalyzed his data for evidence of what Carrington termed displacement. Soule discovered, to his surprise, that 4 of his former participants, Randolph Tucker Pendleton IV, Amanda Bailey, Lingdow and Rachel Brown, evidenced displacement, that is, their responses significantly corresponded to targets for trials one removed from which they were assigned. Soule sought to confirm this finding by testing these participants in new experiments. Conducted during the war years, into the 1950s, under tightly controlled conditions, they produced highly significant results suggestive of precognitive telepathy. The findings were convincing for many other scientists and philosophers regarding telepathy and the claims of Rhine, but were also prominently critiqued as fraudulent, until, following Soule's death in 1975, support for them was largely abandoned. Sequence, position and psychological effects. Rhine and other parapsychologists found that some subjects, or some conditions, produced significant below-chance scoring, or that scores declined during the testing. Some such internal effects in ESP scores have also appeared to be idiosyncratic to particular participants or research methods. Most notable is the focusing effect identified in the decade-long research with Pavel Stepanek. Personality measures have also been tested. People who believe in psi tend to score above chance, while those who do not believe in psi show null results or psi missing. This has become known as the sheep-goat effect. Prediction of decline and other position effects has proved challenging, although they have been often identified in data gathered for the purpose of observing other effects. Personality and attitudinal effects have shown greater predictability, with meta-analysis of parapsychological databases showing the sheep-goat effect, and other traits, to have significant and reliable effects over the accumulated data. Cognitive and humanistic research. In the 1960s, in line with the development of cognitive psychology and humanistic psychology, parapsychologists became increasingly interested in the cognitive components of ESP, the subjective experience involved in making ESP responses, and the role of ESP in psychological life. Memory, for instance, was offered as a better model of psi than perception. This called for experimental procedures that were not limited to Rhine's favored forced choice methodology. Free response measures, such as used by Carrington in the 1930s, were developed with attempts to raise the sensitivity of participants to their cognitions. These procedures included relaxation, meditation, REM sleep, and the ganzfeld. These studies have proved to be even more successful than Rhine's forced choice paradigm, with meta-analyses evidencing reliable effects, and many confirmatory replication studies. Parapsychological investigation of ESP. The study of psi phenomena such as ESP is called parapsychology. The consensus of the Parapsychological Association is that certain types of psychic phenomena such as psychokinesis, telepathy, and astral projection are well established. A great deal of reported extrasensory perception is said to occur spontaneously in conditions which are not scientifically controlled. Such experiences have often been reported to be much stronger and more obvious than those observed in laboratory experiments. These reports, rather than laboratory evidence, have historically been the basis for the widespread belief in the authenticity of these phenomena. However, it has proven extremely difficult to replicate such extraordinary experiences under controlled scientific conditions. Proponents of the ESP phenomena point to numerous studies that cite evidence of the phenomenon's existence. Russell Targ and Harold E. Puthoff, who were physicists at SRI International in the 1970s, as well as J.B. Rhine at Duke University and many others, are often cited in arguments that ESP exists. The main current debate concerning ESP surrounds whether or not statistically compelling laboratory evidence for it has already been accumulated. The most accepted results are all small to moderate statistically significant results. Critics may dispute the positive interpretation of results obtained in scientific studies of ESP, as they claim they are difficult to reproduce reliably, and are small in effect. Parapsychologists have argued that the data from numerous studies show that certain individuals have consistently produced remarkable results while the remainder have constituted a highly significant trend that cannot be dismissed even if the effect is small. Skepticism. Among scientists in the National Academy of Sciences, 96% described themselves as skeptical of ESP. 4% believed in psi. Among all scientists surveyed, 10% felt that parapsychological research should be encouraged. The National Academy of Sciences had previously sponsored the Enhancing Human Performance Report on Mental Development Programs, which was critical of parapsychology. Skeptics claim that there is a lack of a viable theory of the mechanism behind ESP, and that there are historical cases in which flaws have been discovered in the experimental design of parapsychological studies. See also. References. Further reading, The Conscious Universe, by Dean Radine, HarperCollins, 1997, ISBN 0-06-251502-0. Entangled Minds by Dean Radine, Pocket Books, 2006, Milburn Christopher, ESP, Seers and Psychics, What the Occult Really Is, Thomas Y. Crowell, Colorado, 1970, ISBN 0-690-26815-7, Milburn Christopher, Mediums, Mystics and the Occult by Thomas Y. Crowell, Colorado, 1975, Milburn Christopher, Search for the Soul, Thomas Y. Crowell Publishers, 1979, Georges Schepak, Henri Brock, and Bart K. Holland, Debunked. ESP, Telekinesis, and Other Pseudoscience. 2004, ISBN 0-8018-7867-5, Hoyt L. Edge, Robert L. Morris, Joseph H. Rush, John Palmer, Foundations of Parapsychology, Exploring the Boundaries of Human Capability, Routledge Kegan Paul, 1986, ISBN 0-7102-0226-1, Paul Kurtz, A Skeptic's Handbook of Parapsychology, Prometheus Books, 1985, ISBN 0-87975-300-5, Jeffrey Mishlove, Roots of Consciousness, Psychic Liberation Through History, Science and Experience, 1st edition, 1975, ISBN 0-394-73115-8, 2nd edition, Marlowe and Company, July 1997, ISBN 1-56924-747-1. There are two very different editions online. Schmiedler, G. Separating the Sheep from the Goats. Journal of the American Society for Psychical Research, 39, 47 €49. John White, ed. Psychic Exploration, A Challenge for Science, published by Edgar D. Mitchell and G. P. Putman, 1974, ISBN 0-399-11342-8, Richard Wiseman, Deception and Self-Deception, Investigating Psychics. Amherst, USA, Prometheus Press. 1997, Benjamin B. Willman, ed., Handbook of Parapsychology, Van Nostrand Reinhold, 1977, ISBN 0-442-29576-6, Wild, Stuart, Sixth Sense, Including the Secrets of the Etheric Subtle Body, Hay House, 2000. ISBN 978-1-56170-501-6, ISBN 978-1-56170-410-1, Sixth Sense, A Spiritual Perspective by SSRF. http, www.spiritualresarchfound.ion Orjit Spirit Sixth Sense, external links, Extrasensory Perception at DMOZ, Extrasensory Perception at Video Headquarters.